Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going through the 2022 Key Stage 2 Grammar Test. The test is going to take place on Tuesday 9th of May 2023 and there will be two papers as part of this. There will be a spelling paper and there will be the grammar paper. The grammar paper is out of 50 marks and children have 45 minutes to answer all of the questions in the booklet. Children will usually complete it before the allotted time, but then they are reminded to go back and check over their answers if they finish. Most of the questions, or most time, the questions are worth 1 mark. And as always, the number at the side of the question will tell the children how many marks each of those questions are worth. So number 1, underline the subjects of the sentence below. So children should have been taught that in an active sentence, the subject will always come first, so it'll always go subject, verb, object. So in this sentence, children should have underlined a whale. They could have underlined just whale. Lives is going to be our verb, and our object is going to be see. Number 2, draw a line to match each word to the correct suffix. So a suffix is something that's added to the end of a word to change its meaning. So I have the suffixes hood and ship. So childhood, childship, well, childhood would be correct. Champion, I know that champion and ship makes championship. Neighbour would join with hood to make neighbourhood. Friend would join with ship to make friendship, and member, if we add ship to the end of that word, it would make the word membership. Number 3, draw a line to match each prefix to the correct word. Now, prefix is in bold there. Prefixes are added to the beginning of a root word to change the meaning. So this time our prefixes are in, d, and dis. So what children might want to do is go through and see which would be the most suitable prefix. So for cover, I know that I would add dis to the beginning of cover to make discover. I would add in at the beginning of large to make the word enlarge, to make something bigger. And then to frost, I would defrost something. So it would be enlarge, discover, and defrost. Number 4, which sentence must end with a question mark? Now, on these types of questions, they will usually throw a few trickier ones in that children might stumble on. Shall we go round the fitness trail in the park? We could go tomorrow if you like. What I really like is the rope bridge. Let me know what you would like to do. Would I know that I should tick, shall we go around the fitness trail? The children might just see what at the beginning of this and think that that's automatically a question because it starts with what, but they need to make sure that they look at all of the different options. Number 5, which sentence is punctuated correctly? Nevertheless, we, comma, are going on Saturday when I know that that's not correct. My comma isn't in the right place. Finally, comma, I think I understand what you mean. Well, I know that is punctuated correctly because I've got my comma after my frontal adverbial, and I'll just look at my other two just to check. Considering, comma, all his efforts, the result was disappointing, but I know that comma should go after efforts. And at the last comma count, there were 20 people coming. My comma should go there. So both of those are incorrect. Number 6, which sentence uses commas correctly? So the band will perform at concerts in Belfast, Manchester, Birmingham, Nottingham, and Sheffield. When I know that's not correct because in a list and replaces my comma. The children could use to play netball, cricket, hockey, or tennis. Well, I know that is correct. Owls, oh no, missing punctuation. There should be a comma there for owls, so that one is also not correct. Painting, drawing, and sculpture and printmaking, comma, were all options on the art day, so that is also incorrect. So they should have identified this as the correct use of commas. Number 7, which sentence is punctuated correctly? Add 1 ounce around one tablespoon of yeast to your bread mix. Well, if I'm looking at that sentence, I know that around 1 tablespoon is the additional information. So I'm looking for the sentence that has brackets around that. So that's going to be the third one. Number 8, which sentence expresses the greatest certainty? Now, this question is testing the children's understanding of modal verbs. So, which one is most likely to happen? It may rain later in the week. Well, I need to look at all of the other options first. The train might arrive late again today. Well, both of these are modal verbs to indicate possibility. We're looking for certainty. I will walk through the park to get to school. Well, I know that so far has a greater certainty. It should be sunny and warm tomorrow. That again, that's possibility. So it would be I will walk through the park to get to school. Number 9, insert a pair of commas in the correct place in the sentence below. The African elephant, the largest land mammal in the world, can weigh up to 6.6 tons. So I know that I'm adding in I'm using parenthesis here. So I need a comma after elephant because I'm adding in the largest land mammal in the world. So I need a comma after world. If I take that away, my sentence will still make sense. So the African elephant can weigh up to 6.6 tons, and there I've added in that extra information. Number 10, what does the word them refer to in the sentence below? And here we're testing the children's understanding of pronouns. So, although deserts are very dry, a rich variety of plants and animals can survive in them. So here I know that they are talking about deserts. They're not talking about variety. They're not referring to plants. They're not referring to animals. They are referring to the deserts and that the plants and animals can survive in those deserts. Number 11, circle the correct verb form in each underlined pair to complete the sentence below. William Shakespeare, the famous writer, is born or was born. Well, I know that happened in the past, so that's going to be was. In Stratford-upon-Avon in 1564, and later will move. Well, I know that's in the future tense, so it should be moved because it's going to be in the past tense. To London, where he will become, again, that's future tense, where he became an actor. Even today, Shakespeare's plays are performed around the world. Number 12, draw a line to match each word below to its antonym. Now, an antonym is a word which has the opposite meaning. So the opposite to near is going to be far. The opposite of cold is going to be hot. The opposite of distant is going to be close. And the opposite of warm is going to be cool. Antonyms are words which have the opposite meaning. Number 13, insert a semicolon in the correct place in the sentence below. Now, I know that a semicolon goes between two main clauses, so I'm looking for two main clauses. The suitcase was heavy, the box was lighter, but more awkward to carry. Now, it should go here between heavy and the box. Now, what some children did in my class this year is they added a comma before but there, which is fine, but they only are looking for this semicolon. Number 14, write the contracted form of the underlined words in the boxes below them. And when I'm looking for contractions, I need to make sure that I'm using an apostrophe for contraction. So Liam was not completely surprised at the knock on his door that morning. So that's going to be wasn't. So that's going to be WASN apostrophe T, and the apostrophe needs to go between the N and the T because that's where the letter has been omitted. In fact, he had been waiting for this particular visitor. I know that he had becomes he'd. It is good to see you, he said, opening the door. It is becomes it. And you would need to get all 3 of those correct to get 1 mark. Number 15, what is the word class of the underlined words? I have 2 brothers. Brian is older and Stanley is younger than me. Now, I know that the words older and younger are describing a noun. They are describing Brian and they are describing Stanley. So therefore, I know that words that describe nouns are going to be adjectives. They aren't nouns because they're not things or people. They're not adverbs because they do not describe a verb, and they also are not verbs. They are not doing words. Number 16, insert a dash in the correct place in the sentence below. And we know that a dash is used to add additional information as parentheses. So the story was exciting. It was full of action and adventure. So my dash would need to go here between exciting and it. Number 17, which sentence is the most formal? Getting enough sleep is important, isn't it? Now this one has a contraction and it also has a question tag, which makes it quite informal. So I'm going to put a tick next to that one, but I do need to look at all of my options. Let's set off early for school tomorrow. Again, this one has a contraction, so I wouldn't say that was formal. Do you fancy coming with us to the park? So therefore, I need to tick the last one. It is essential that we remember our water bottles. So they've used a more formal word there for important, maybe. It is essential, which makes that the most formal. Number 18, circle the 2 words that are synonyms of each other in the passage below. And we're looking for synonyms. Synonyms are words that mean the same thing. The school will supply all meals during the trip. If parents wish to provide children with additional drinks, they may do so. So I'm looking for the word supply and I'm looking for the word provide, which mean the same thing. Number 19, label each of the clauses in the sentence below as either main or subordinate. Now, main clauses do make sense on their own. Subordinate clauses do not make sense on their own, and they do contain a subordinating conjunction. So if we look at each part, after they had been for a swim. Now, that contains the subordinating conjunction after. It doesn't make sense on its own, so that is subordinate. The boys had a drink. I have my subject, verb, and object, so there is my main clause. Because they were very thirsty, that contains a subordinating conjunction because it doesn't make sense on its own, so that is going to be S for subordinating. Number 20, insert a pair of dashes in the correct place in the sentence below. The Caspian Sea, which is a saltwater lake, is the largest inland body of water in the world. So I'm looking for the additional information that's been added into the sentence for my pair of dashes. So I know that which is a saltwater lake is my additional information. So a dash needs to go between sea and which, and then it needs to go between lake and is. So my dashes would go there. Number 21, insert a colon in the correct place in the sentence below. Now, normally colons are used to list or to give an explanation. They can be used to replace the conjunction because. Many fossils are not as big as people think. Some are so small that you need a microscope to see them. So I know that my colon is going to go after think. Many fossils are not as big as people think, colon, and then I've got my explanation. Some are so small that you need a microscope to see them. Number 22, draw a line to match each sentence to its description. Use each description once. So we have sentences here and descriptions, and these are testing the children on the simple past tense, the past progressive tense, an action in progress, and the present progressive tense. So Jake was cycling. Now I know that this happened in the past and I know that it's an action in progress. So I need to join that to an action in progress in the past. Jake cycled. Now that's in the simple past tense, so I need to match that to an action in the past. And Jake is cycling, an action in progress in the present. Is cycling, is in the present progressive tense. Number 23, which option is punctuated correctly? Now there are a lot of questions like this on this paper, but again, all testing different punctuation marks. And this one is testing the use of a colon to list. So he is famous for his innovative music, a mix of recorded noises, traditional instruments, and songs. So I know that my first option that I'm looking at is actually the correct one, because I've got my main clause here, I've got my colon, and then I've got my list, which has been punctuated correctly. This sentence here has a full stop and the capital letter and no capital letter. This one here has a semicolon instead of a colon and a comma before and this one has a comma and brackets where they should not be. Doesn't quite work there. Number 24. Underline the subordinate clause in the sentence below. When the crowd heard the clattering sound, they gasped in astonishment. So I know that my subordinating conjunction is when, so I'm looking for the rest of that clause, and I know the clause doesn't make sense on its own, so I know that I should underline when the crowd heard the clattering sound, and that would give me 1 mark, and then I know that they gasped in astonishment is my main clause. Number 25. Use the information in the box to complete the sentence below with the relative clause. Remember to punctuate your answer correctly. So, my grandma, and they've given an extra bit of information there to say that grandma loves travelling. So there's a few different options that we could give here. Went on holiday to Spain. So I could say my grandma, and I need to use a relative clause. So my relative pronoun that I could use is, I could use who. I'll give you an example of how I can use whose, and I'll give you an example of how I could use whom. So my grandma, who loves travelling, that would probably be the most straightforward one we could use as our relative clause. Another relative clause that we could use is whose love of travelling was famous is another option, and this has come from the mark scheme there. And if you also wanted to use whom, you could say my grandma, whom travelling delights, went on holiday to Spain. Now, you could also, they do also accept answers where the verb has been changed. So things like, my grandma, who loves to go on holiday, that will also be accepted. Or they could also have said, my grandma, who loves flying, or my grandma, who has been to many places, my grandma, who has been to many destinations. So as long as it makes sense and it has been punctuated correctly, the children will get the mark. If they use the incorrect relative pronoun, for example, if they say my grandma, which loves to travel, they will not get the mark. So it needs to be the correct use of the relative pronoun. And this will be the last question that we look at in this video before we break off and move on to part 2. What are the word classes of the 2 underlined words in the sentence below? The erosive force of the sea erodes the coastline. Now, this word erosive is describing the force. So I know straight away that it is an adjective. So I know it must be either one of these 2 options. The erosive force of the sea erodes the coastline. So I know that something is happening to that coastline. Therefore, that is going to be a verb. It is eroding. So I should tick the second one there. Erosive being my adjective, and road, being my verb. So this will be the end of part 1. Thank you so much for watching, and catch up with us again in part 2, where you will see the rest of the answers to the second part of the paper. Thanks for watching.